I have finished Outrageous Women of the Middle Ages by Vicki Leone. This is part of a large series of books that Vicki Leone has written over quite a amount of time. I've read quite a few of hers that are from lots of different historical eras. This one is a little more geared towards younger readers a little bit. It is not. I wouldn't say that it is a juvenile book, but it is geared in that sort of fashion. So I wouldn't say it's exclusively interesting. It was a good read just if you're interested in women's history, but it is kind of more lined up with, say, middle school interest level is what it's kind of aiming at. But she does go after a lot of different women that you normally wouldn't have heard of. There are some, like Eleanor of Aquitaine, that would have been generally pretty well known, but she's also dug up some other people who are very, very interesting, and she goes by different areas of the world, too, at this time period. Like Mahout, the Countess of Artois, she talks about in the Middle East and North Africa and different areas, people that I would not have known of, like Anna Karenina, that did a lot of reporting about the Crusades that generally you would not have heard of a person like that. She goes to the Far East at different points. Murasaki Shikubu, which I believe that's the one who was the writer. Yeah, she was the one who did the Tales of Genji. But very, very good kind of overview of unusual women from this time period, women who are kind of overlooked. We talk about queens and different things a lot of times from this time period, or not really talk about women at all in the Middle Ages. And Leone is pulling out some that, like one who was a doctor, and apparently there was a whole group of female doctors that were in Italy during this time period that don't get mentioned much. They've either been erased from history, or we only have certain amounts that we know about them, or they were ignored because men were writing the history. So she's done some digging into some women that you would not normally see addressed in a book, especially a book that's towards younger readers. I would say that's very good because she's being very inclusive. She's gone very universal here in the women she's picked. I would also say that some of these, I'm interested enough to see if there's any more information anyone's written any more in depth, because this is sort of like an encyclopedia biographies as they're going through. I would like to see if there's any more in depth about some of these women, particularly Mahout. Seems like she was an interesting woman. The ones that they were talking about in Italy that were the doctors seem very interesting. It's basically another situation where lots of people were having history at different times. They were just not being addressed very well because they were either minority groups in area or female, or they were an area that no one paid much attention to when we talk about general history, that we just don't pull these people up a lot of times because they're not white and European, some of them. So this quite a good little introduction to what women were up to during the Middle Ages. Good book for younger readers. Good book to introduce them to some women that would not have been heard of generally. Probably the most famous one in here, I would say, would be Eleanor of Aquitaine, because she's just sort of well known anyway. But there's a lot of other women in here that had big impacts during the Middle Ages. It's just they're not acknowledged of that a lot of times. So this one, like I said, shorter one by Vicki Leone. She's written some longer ones. She's written some ones that are more aimed towards adults in the same sort of format. I don't know if this is something she did a little, whether this is somebody's taken this and put this more in a more youthful form, or whether this is one that she just sort of wrote that way as a young adult sort of style, rather than sticking the ones that I've seen, which are very much more, I mean, they could be young adult reads, but they are more geared the way they're made towards adults, how they were written. But again, Outrageous Women of the Middle Ages, a good one to pick up if you want sort of an overview and might want to be interested in learning some more about some of these ladies and trying to track down some more information about them and what they were up to.